Hey everyone. Okay, so right out of the gate, we got a new opening, and like all new openings nowadays, this one I guess came with a couple detractors. Like, I guess saying that the song was maybe a little too light and bouncy for the kind of arc that we're headed into. And the thing is, while I kind of agree, like, this arc does get pretty dark, the truth of the matter is, at its core, One Piece is still very much an adventure shown in the series, so openings like this are always going to be a part of the series, regardless of what we may think of when they're used. With that said, the visuals of this opening are definitely an interesting beast to talk about, because this opening is definitely one of those things where you can definitely tell the animators went for a more bouncy, simplistic art style with limited line work as just a means to really let themselves run wild with this opening's production, which in itself I think does match the more colorful and wondrous aspects of the arc, but they still knew to tone the style down somewhat when it came to focusing on some of the darker, more spoilery elements of the arc to come. And so yeah, it's overall like I think this arc is this opening is really good just for how how it really captures the like kind of wild, adventurous side of this new island. I also like how this opening did feel like we went through the Straw Hats' kind of greatest hits, as we saw them wearing the many different outfits they had wore during all the several past arcs through the series, all leading up to the ones they'd wear in Egghead arc, which the coat you see Luffy wearing, the red coat, that is very much the style you're going to see the Straw Hats wear during this arc, and yeah, it's very futuristic to say the least. And this okay, so now with that said, this will be the final note I'm gonna make about the opening, but did anyone else notice the length of the opening itself? It clocked in at 1:40, which is a little strange considering the normal length of a One Piece opening, and pretty much nowadays, is anywhere from 2:15 to 2.5 minutes long. And that's not including a recap. So, yeah, as weird as it is and I know it's kind of weird that I'm focusing on the opening length, but Toei it's one of those things where that make me say Toei is just by cutting down those like 40-50 seconds, Toei is weirdly kind of playing it a little ballsy with a shorter opening, since that was kind of one of their ways of extending the length of the episode and preventing themselves from like catching up to the manga, so to speak. So, which in itself kind of almost says to me that I almost wonder if the Egghead arc in the manga is coming to a close very soon. But also but even more so than that, we also see in this episode that by the end of the episode, they ended up creating this little animated like Q&A segment between Robin and Chopper, and it's one of the, it's something very it's an interesting idea I hadn't thought about before, but if that's the kind of thing they're going to be using as a means to kind of as an alternative way to extend the length of the episode, honestly, I would kind of prefer that over just extending like the ending or opening. Like if adding these little Q&A segments is going to be Toei's new way of extending the episode, I'll be honest, I'm perfectly fine with it, as long like if it's not going to affect the actual length of the episode too much. I'm kind of on board with that. It's a fun little. I'll admit segments like that might get a little annoying over time, but they are fun little segments. I think are probably worth are kind of an interesting way of kind of extending that runtime a bit more, maybe without actually extending the episode. Which, yeah, big picture to talk about with this episode is you could say we got a first glimpse of the real power of the world government, as the Gorosei unleashed some kind of weapon upon the Lucia Kingdom, just completely wiping it off the map. Like, this is one of those things that definitely puts the Buster Call to shame. And like the fact that this is a weapon that exists that can just one shot destroy an entire island, destroy an entire nation, island, whatever else. And it's like, this is dangerous, a dangerous weapon for them to hold. Like, it truly makes them kind of even more dangerous than we ever thought of them before. And without giving away too much, let's just say this weapon is one of the big narrative crux points of this arc. As while this arc is pretty much a setup arc, it's a very narratively hefty setup arc. Like, Egghead does a lot of heavy lifting in regards to filling in a lot of, in regards to just opening up the world of One Piece and just kind of answering a whole lot of questions we've had about like certain things that have kind of been a mystery for so long, like about for example, about a certain missing period of history, and even kind of filling in certain gaps about certain narrative gaps I personally wasn't ever thinking about, but upon seeing them does even add new context to things I hadn't thought about. And to answer the more obvious question of if Saba's dead, remember the golden rule. If you don't see a body, he's probably alive. Although, admittedly, even as a manga reader, I still have issues believing Sabo survives that whole thing. Like, it never feels like honestly, it feels like he never should have survived that. But at the very least, we did get confirmation that he didn't kill Cobra. But then that in itself just kind of begs the question of what the fuck Eam is. Because obviously Eam is the culprit of who killed Cobra, but the way the anime built that thing, yes, I'm calling it a thing, up in this episode, makes Eam's very existence feel like the most sinister fucking shit on the planet. Like, frankly, even given what's going to be revealed later about Eam, that really isn't too far off from the truth. Like, Eam is, no uncertain terms, is a monster. It's just a question of what kind of monster he is, which, truthfully, even now, as someone who has read the manga and has learned about Eam's origins, even I'm not 100% sure on the answer myself, even knowing those origins, because it's like, even with the context of those origins, it's like, it still leaves questions of what the fuck Eam is. Like, what the fuck is going... Like, again, you get the answers, but even then, how much do you... There's such a mystery with Eam that it's like, how much do you even believe the answers you get? And even just the kind of the basic logistics of the reveal itself is just like, what the fuck is going on here? But, yeah, with that said, I will admit... The weakest part of this episode was with the Straw Hats, simply because it felt like them getting up to their usual shenanigans, with the only worthwhile thing to talk about from that portion is the end, where they end up saving Jewelry Bonnet from a giant monster shark. And would you believe me if I said this is only the appetizer of what's to come? Because at first I was a little taken aback by the way this episode ended, because it wasn't how I initially thought they'd end this episode, but after revisiting the chapters adapted in this episode, especially the first 2 pages of chapter 1061, which were used as the ending, I did realize, okay, yeah, I can see why Toei would end it where they did, especially since the Sabo stuff already took up a large chunk of the episode itself, although... That just does beg the question of how they are going to handle a certain reveal next week, because it's the kind of reveal you expect the anime to use as the final moments of an episode, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with this particular reveal unless they stretch out certain segments within the adaptation of the chapter itself, which wouldn't be unheard of, but it might make the next episode feel a little more slow in the pace than this one was. With that said, I want to talk about the art style this week, and probably what we'll see throughout the entire arc, but the art style went through another shift like it did with Wano, except this Except this change is way more drastic. As with 1.0, you can tell that they created a lot more hardened line work and shadows and whatnot. Whereas here, they pretty much ditched a lot of that. Like the changes in Egghead are already way more drastic than the changes in 1.0. Because much like the new opening, the art style is way more buoyant and bouncy with less line work, and although I do have reservations about this approach for how it's going to affect production in the future, I do gotta admit, you can tell this has offered the animators way more freedom in how they animate the characters, whether that's through their movements or even just something as simple as facial expressions. And so far, honestly, it does feel like it's working, so I think this will, at the very least, provide like Egghead with a lot more of a visual style, you could say, I think, compared to other arcs, I think. But yeah guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, push the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Night signing off. Later, everyone.